This Arsenal side look absolutely sensational. They absolutely decimated Burnley yesterday. And in this video, we're going to talk about where it leaves Arsenal in the Premier League title race. In my opinion, they're the in-form side in the league. I think they're the only side to have ever won the first 5 games of a calendar year. And they could have been yesterday the first side to ever win back-to-back 6-0 wins in the Premier League. Obviously, they were just short of that, but they got very close. It could have been 10 against Burnley, and there's no question that Arsenal are the in-form side in the Premier League, and they're fighting for the Premier League title in a big way. In the kind of period of the season where it's so important, because you still have a little bit of wiggle room. The Fulham and West Ham results that we always talk about with this Arsenal side that look like maybe the beginning of the end of their title charge this season, certainly. The fact that that happened would obviously be a concern to Arteta, but you still have enough wiggle room in the season to readjust and reevaluate how you're going to play moving forward. And there have been some big changes. We're going to discuss them in this video and some observations from the game. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. I'll be obviously covering League Cup final coming up this week as well. Well, next week, I think it is. Obviously, Arsenal are playing Burnley. We have to contextualise that in a big way. Burnley are absolutely shocking. The defending for Kai Havertz's goal at the end, for example, is woeful. It's championship. So we have to put things into perspective. But Burnley is still a side that Arsenal have to get past. Burnley is still a side where Arsenal have to show a lot of mettle. It's away from home. It's a tough place to go in the kind of classic sense. But also, you know, the weather wasn't great. These are small factors, but obviously in the Premier League, they can play a huge part in terms of momentum, in terms of rhythm. And the fact that Arsenal got into the game so early, the Odegaard finish was absolutely beautiful. I think he's got far more of that in his locker than we've seen in the last couple of years. I think he could be scoring a lot more. Maybe that's a really it's a big criticism potentially. It's a little bit harsh, but you can be harsh with your criticism of a footballer if you think they can be as good as I think Martin Odegaard could absolutely be. The finish was absolutely beautiful. But it's more about the finish. It's about how early it came in the game. The pressure was alleviated. I felt last season that Arsenal would take a little bit of a while to get into it and try and get their foot on the ball and not attack sides ruthlessly early in the game. I think City have got a very, very good record of scoring early. I think even Liverpool do as well, especially when they won the title. They'd get at sides and it would be Salah 1. You know, it'd be Salah 17 minutes, Salah 12 minutes. Mane, 14 minutes, 5 minutes, for example. These kind of, I always used to see it on Soccer Saturday. And I think this Arsenal side getting their noses in front early multiple times this season is a bit of a mentality shift. I think Arteta is telling them to go out and show your quality even earlier and not worry about getting on the ball, not worry about passages of play and patterns and overthinking it, but just get outside and try and beat them early and try and get your noses in front early. That is a mentality shift, and that is an Arsenal side that I think have learned from last season of when it's right to attack and when it's right to be defensive and defensively solid. We saw that against Liverpool. We saw that even against Man City at the Emirates at the start of the season, where Arsenal were kind of keeping it very, very tight, keeping it limited and knowing when to strike later in the game against bigger opposition. But against the likes of Burnley, against the likes of, I think, Newcastle, who are in really, really poor form at the moment, Sheffield United, Brentford at home, this is a great opportunity to use that exciting front three and then Martin Odegaard, who's been sensational in recent weeks, to get your noses in front early. We have to talk about Bukayo Saka, who's now added a lot more goals in recent weeks. Penalties as well, obviously huge. I talked about that in the West Ham win, how obviously what a seismic shift that is in terms of, you know, last season that maybe cost Arsenal the title, the miss it at the Olympic Park, and then going on to score a penalty in the same game almost a year on, or same part of the season certainly, and then to do it against Burnley, and then to score with his right foot. I think this is like a very minute criticism of Bukayo Saka, but we definitely could say that Bukayo Saka at points has been limited in terms of being one-footed, cutting in on his left foot all the time. I think he's got more than enough talent. He's shown me throughout the years that he's more than versatile enough to be two-footed and to use his right foot to create more opportunities and to score big goals. Obviously, these are massive comparisons, but the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo in the league, the likes of maybe an Eric Cantona in the league, someone like Kevin De Bruyne, great creative players always use their left and right foot. I think that's just how you have to be a great in today's day and age. And Bukayo Saka, we know he's two-footed. We've seen him play at right back. We've seen him play at left back when he was much younger at Arsenal, of course, left wing back. He can play anywhere across the front three. So he is two-footed, and he's very, very smart at reading the game as well and understanding when you can attack on the outside, when it's good to come in. Obviously, coming in has been very profitable for Bukayo Saka throughout his career. But it was just a moment where I thought maybe he's been coached by Arteta. Maybe there's just a small change in his game. Obviously, it's Burnley. But to see him score on his right foot into the roof of the net was a beautiful finish. And that, again, is showing me that Bukayo Saka is adding strings to his bow. We have to be completely real. This Arsenal side, this is what the beauty of this Premier League title race is. We've got this legacy side in Man City. They're going for 4 in a row that are dominant, that kind of a complete package. But then you're coming up against Liverpool that kind of had this emotion in terms of Jurgen Klopp leaving, this kind of end of an era kind of narrative to Liverpool. And then with Arsenal, it's this kind of young apprentice coming through, a young core of 5, 6, 7 world-class young players. I throw in Gabriel, Saliba, Saka, Martinelli, someone like maybe Ben White as well. This young group of players, Declan Rice in terms of his big first move in his career to play for a big Champions League club in Arsenal. So that's the narrative for Arsenal, that they're a young side that are rapidly improving. Don't forget, Guardiola in his first season had a massive nucleus of a young Kevin De Bruyne, a young John Stones, a young Raheem Sterling. Jesus came through the first season as well, for example. It took a year to understand, wow, City are not as good as Conte's Chelsea. That's how long ago it was. And Arsenal now might be thinking, this is how good we have to be as good as Man City. And we saw it when Liverpool came second with 97 points. The following season, they kicked on and they were ruthless. Maybe this Arsenal side are literally holding in the memory of what happened last season. They're all the same players. They're all the same quality of players that got a point total last season that could have won a Premier League title in historical times. So this Arsenal side are against Burnley showing to me that they're not only probably massively frustrated about what happened last season, but they're improving and they're trying to make it better. Again, it's all in the context of Burnley, but in the last few games, they've scored so many goals and basically faced very, very few shots on target. David Raya has been a huge part of that as well. Let's be real. Let's be completely real. Against Liverpool, if he played in the Premier League, against even West Ham, against Forest, I think one of those games, there's a Ramsdale tweet that goes out and it's a highlight of a mistake he made. I'm on Twitter. I've not seen anything from David Raya. I've not seen a single highlight of David Raya in recent weeks. That is the best thing. That's the best compliment based on how bad it was at the start of the season with them coming in and out, being swapped and changed. That's the best compliment I can pay David Raya. Gabriel, Saliba and David Raya are forming this little triangle with Declan Rice ahead of them. That is very, very stingy. Declan Rice, even in the latter stages of the game against Burnley, keeping it very simple, keeping it basic, showing this level of maturity that, we don't want to make it, we'd rather make it 5-0 versus 6-1, for example, or concede any kind of goals to Burnley. Obviously, they scored against Liverpool last week, so they've got a goal in them, even though they've been pretty rubbish this season, with all due respect. Arsenal are showing a maturity, they're showing a conservatism, and then they're letting their front three fire. Trossard was fantastic, Martinelli was fantastic. Even Kai Havertz, we'll wrap up with Kai Havertz. If he's nutmegging people, if he's showing skills to that level, that's absolutely superb. And it says the whole team are ticking. I think Kai Havertz is one of those players where if Kai Havertz is feeling... if the side is doing well, then Kai Havertz does well. If the side isn't doing well, then Kai Havertz doesn't have a good game. I think he rises and falls with the tide of the form of Arsenal Football Club, if that makes sense. So the fact that Kai Havertz is nutmegging people and scoring beautiful goals, it was a great goal, says a lot about Arsenal's form, Arsenal's confidence going into the remainder of the season. I talked about Newcastle. I talked about Sheffield United. These are very, very winnable games. Porto as well. We could be looking at Arsenal side creeping towards maybe a Champions League final appearance in London, obviously at Wembley. I think they're going to get through those games. I think they'll beat Chelsea. And obviously I talked about Brentford as well. The 31st of March, Man City versus Arsenal. If there's 3 points in it, 2 points in it, if Liverpool concede or drop points, that game is absolutely huge. I think Arsenal got to give themselves a platform to be able to go to the Etihad, even take a draw and try and take some sort of positive result away from Manchester. And Arsenal certainly in this Premier League title race. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Would really appreciate that. Let me know your thoughts down below, and obviously give the video a like if you've watched this far. Would really appreciate it. See you very soon.